Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
And welcome to all of the potential first-time listeners who have just found DK Vine through Did You Know Gaming, which, for those who aren't aware, Did You Know Gaming just did a video on the project developed briefly at Vicarious Visions, the codenamed Donkey Kong Freedom, that we broke, well, it was over a year ago on the Kongversation, and then I wrote a story about it, because I was like, some people just don't listen to these podcasts we do. So I wrote up an article about it. That actually caught some steam, and people were like, oh, this is news. But all the big outlets ignored us, except Did You Know Gaming. And Liam Robinson from Did You Know Gaming said, you know what, maybe there's something to this, and did some digging and found out, oh yeah, they're not making this up. This is a real thing. And so it's good to be validated. It's good to get that. Sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into the wind, right? Because, some crackpot calls himself a Donkey Kong journalist and runs a website that has been historically known for flying off the handle at these perceived slights towards Donkey Kong and rare characters. And we have a bit of a silly reputation behind us, although we've done a fairly adequate job of shedding that in the last 10 to 15 years, I would say. I mean, I'm not saying we're Pulitzer level yet, but we are definitely not the laughingstock we used to be, running around making duty in our diapers. So, that being said, it's nice when some outlet that carries a bit more respect than we do says, oh yeah, no, they're right.
Yeah, I like that video. I like the part when he talks about the banana shoes. The rest was okay.
The banana shoes are, I think, everybody's favorite aspect of our initial reporting of that, and because it's just such a delightful touch. And I think, somebody said to me, that's how I know it's true, because who would make that up? It's like, yeah.
That's something impossible to just pull out of your head.
But, yeah, so welcome. We're DK Vine. We do the Kongversation. It's a weekly podcast we do about the Donkey Kong universe, both news and a lot of nostalgia as well. And we cover it all. Donkey Kong, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker. I'm not
the
gonna
rest.
I'm not going to get into how 3 Star Fox games fall under the purview of the Donkey Kong universe, but not the other ones. Just 3 of them. But yeah, we do have a lot to talk about, Dustin. And it concerns Donkey Kong, and that's still so weird to say, given that we are now over 10 years without a new full-length standalone released Donkey Kong game. And
it's very weird to say out loud.
Yeah, and a lot of people who look in from the outside ask, how do you possibly have 12 seasons worth to talk about when your first season coincided with the year that Tropical Freeze was announced? And Blood from a Stone, I can really milk it, you know what I mean? That I find the udders on the stone and I yank them until they bleed.
If there's one thing you need to know about Hyle, is he's really good at milking.
And metaphors. Yeah,
true.
But it's a weirdly odd time for Donkey Kong news, given how much Donkey Kong news we have, and yet there's still no sign of the new game. So it's one of those episodes where we'll be talking a lot about new Donkey Kong news, even though there's still no new game. So buckle up, hang tight, because we will be discussing all of the new recent news concerning the Donkey Kong Country half of Super Nintendo World in Osaka, Japan, and the upcoming Super Nintendo World in Orlando, Florida, USA. So,
oh man, Hyle,
yeah.
my arms are already in the air for this wild ride we're about to take.
It is going to be a wild ride, and we now know how tall you must be to ride the ride.
I just barely made it this year.
So, I know we've been measuring your height on the wall with pencil every year.
We were cutting it close.
Yeah. So, before we get into it, really quick, I want to plug our merchandise store at dkvine.com/merchandise. It's a TeePublic storefront, but don't let that scare you away. They make quality merchandise. I'm wearing a TeePublic shirt right now, Dustin.
Ooh. Which one?
I'm wearing our Goodnight Big Ape City shirt, the Frasier parody that got pulled thanks to CBS.
Ooh, a rare one.
Yeah. So this is our only discontinued shirt. The other 39 are still available. Don't worry. And yeah, just this month we launched the gift shop purchase (class field trip 1995) t-shirt, which is a Monkey Museum Smithsonian parody. Fantastic stuff there. And we also have the Baza Super Life Battery brand t-shirt.
What a one to put on a shirt. That's probably the one I want to get the most.
It is a one because I just basically recreated the logo that's on the batteries in the game.
That's one of those things no one will get. They'll look at your shirt and say, huh, this guy really likes batteries.
But that's the kind of stuff I like. And I looked into it. Like, Duracell makes t-shirts, and I'm just like, well, fuck it. Like,
yeah, why not?
Who the hell? Like, I would rather wear a fictional battery brand than a real one. You know what I mean?
That's true. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, so... And that's the kind of merchandise I like. That's the kind of stuff that, like, Fangamer really used to sell before they actually started making official shirts, is they would make stuff that would be evocative of the video game worlds themselves, almost like...
Right, stuff you might find in the world.
Yes, and that's the kind of stuff I really like more so than just wearing official shirts with Donkey Kong on them where he's eating a banana, you know, and it says, like, Go Ape on it. You know, it's like...
It says, eat a banana.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I like the more esoteric stuff that, if you know, you know, as our friend Josh Wallen says, you know, the kind of stuff that the outsiders looking at it will have no idea what it is, and they'll think you're normal. They'll think you're regular folk. But anybody inside the cult will see it, and they'll be like, oh my God. And they'll be your best
This person's cool. Why are they wearing this?
Yeah, so that is the kind of stuff I like. That's why I put that Baza Super Life Battery brand t-shirt up there. And we'll have more of that stuff in the future as well. But yeah, check it out. dkvine.com/merchandise. We're also on Twitch. We stream every week on Twitch. Not as much as I would like to. I am gradually building back up, figuring out my schedule and trying to assign decent times where I can stream more on the regular. It's such a stressful thing for me, Dustin, streaming.
I get that. Yeah, no need to tell me. I do it every Tuesday with the rest of the Idaho gang.
And there's one thing where you stream with a bunch of people, but when you're just doing it by yourself and you have to be...
It's all on you to entertain people.
You have to be entertaining as well as playing the game. And it burns me out. You also have to, like, worry about technical issues, and it's just... Like, DK Vine Done Slow is my series that I stream on our Twitch channel. It's been on hiatus all year, and partially because my living situation changed. I moved, and then I was, like, acclimating to doing DK Vine for a full-time gig, and then all of a sudden, the time gets away from you, but... It's honestly just so stressful doing it, and I'm such a perfectionist that it breaks my brain. So I will get back to streaming more on the regular, but as you said, Dustin, the Idaho crew, you stream Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You, Cameron, Andrew, Adam, sometimes your friend Tate shows up.
Yeah, he's kind of the wacky neighbor who will show up every once in a while.
Yeah. I heard about his wacky exploits when we discussed your version of the DKU draft on the last episode I did with Jeff.
That's true. The whole gang was here to do that.
Voted for Donkey Konga.
Yeah, I think his list was probably the most creative.
We'll call it that. Yeah, that to be kind.
Yeah.
We'll call it creative. But yeah, and then we stream of Thieves every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. BST, where 3 to 4 of us play Sea of Thieves. And it's a great way to catch up with Sea of Thieves and see it through the lens of the fanatical, old-school Rare fans, which so many people have gotten into Sea of Thieves, and that's like their first Rare game, or like the one that they're really passionate about. So if you want to hear people talking about Grab by the Ghoulies while they're playing Sea of Thieves, tune into our stream.
Hell yeah. That's my favorite part is when Ghoulies comes up.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Ghoulies. You know me, Dustin. I could talk about Ghoulies.
Oh, of course.
The entire week on Twitch. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just sit me in front of a microphone and say, talk about Grab by the Ghoulies. And that would be more accessible for me than playing a video game for 2 hours.
Yeah, hey, you know what? It's only a matter of time until the Grab by the Ghoulies theme park opens.
I never thought there would be a Donkey Kong Country theme park, so it only took us 30 years.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, it only took us 30 years to finally get there. It could happen in our lifetime. I could show up 102 years old. Finally, the Grab by the Ghoulies theme park is here.
Yeah, people will mistake you for one of the zombies.
That's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. I don't want to be a farting old man.
Those are the best kind, though.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a farting old man than a regular one.
It's your variance, your preferred persona is old man parentheses farting.
That's what it'll say on the Wikipedia page.
Anyway, twitch.tv/DKVine. Finally, we are on Patreon, dkvine.com/Patreon. You can listen to the conversation or watch DK Vine videos a day early. You can also, potentially, if you are a $5 nut patron, listen to the conversation live as we record them. Right now in the live stream, we've got Porygon Q, we've got Luffy Don, we've got Freezer. Hello.
Love him.
Yeah. Luffy Don says, Hyle, you could be a good booker storyteller in pro wrestling with how good you are at milking. Honestly,
oh, that's nice.
Honestly, I've always maintained that booking pro wrestling, like writing stories for wrestling, would be an amazing job if you have the full creative control and the right circumstances to do it, because it's one of the only mediums out there where you can have instant audience reaction to what you're writing. You're like, it's out there. You're actually getting a visceral reaction where people are cheering or booing. And, yeah, that would be a fun job. I support that, but I'm too busy being a Donkey Kong journalist, honestly. So I'll have to, make that, kind of what I do part-time.
Maybe someday in the future.
What we need to do is start a DK Vine, wrestling promotion, really.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Everybody's gimmicks could be based on the DKU.
I'm the flying acorn.
Yeah, we could have like just a Professor Chops, just somebody in
someone in a Professor Chops costume, and they come out and get the shit beat out of them.
Just somebody wearing a pig snout, one of those like strap-on pig snouts and glasses, okay. And they just ring a bell. They just come out to the ring, like incessantly ringing that bell.
That'd be great. I don't consider myself a wrestling guy, but I'd watch for that.
Hello to Giga Strike as well. We'll be checking in with a live stream as we go. But Dustin, today we are talking about Donkey Kong Country at Super Nintendo World. And just for clarification's sake, It's Super Nintendo World at Universal Japan and Super Nintendo World at the upcoming Epic Universe at Universal Orlando. This will
the
not...
two Universals farthest away from where I live.
I was gonna say, sucks to be Dustin, because this is not going to be coming to Universal Hollywood. There's no room to expand for Kong, if you will.
Oh,
yeah. It's a confined little park. Like, all the theme parks out there are like, you have to be cramped, right?
Right. Yeah, you have to be, or else you're just not, like, they don't want you to have too good a time.
Well, I mean, but like Disneyland is smaller than Disney World. You know, they just don't have the room for aggressive expansion out there, because Orlando basically decided we're going to be where people build theme parks. And so there's just infinite space to just make. I mean, it's a whole industry. It's a whole like closed ecosystem there.
Right.
I've talked about it before, but it's just amazing, like, how many contacts I have out there. Like, Banks Lee, who was the actor who played Elvis on my award-winning college sitcom, Elvis and Slick Monty. He now works out there as a theme park journalist.
That's fun. That's cool. My mom watches theme park journalists like all the time. That's like anytime I go over to my parents' house, she's always watching like Disneyland videos all day.
I really felt my blood run cold there, because I thought you were going to say my mom watches Elvis and Slick Monty, and I was like, no, Mrs.
Oh yeah,
Jackson.
she's a big. Yeah, she loves the one with the fish.
yeah, so that was quality. So anyway, it's a big deal, and I keep stressing it's a big deal for Donkey Kong. And it's just one of these weird like bifurcations where I think intellectually a lot of people know it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. But what will happen is positive news will break about the park, right? And when I'm going to say park a lot of times, and it's going to refer to both, but news will break and people will get all excited. Speaking of goldfish, it's like people forget. They forget this is happening because they get really excited for a couple days and then they just forget. And then they fall into the cycle of Donkey Kong is a dead brand. It's a dead franchise. There will never be a new Donkey Kong game again. Everything sucks. We are circling the drain. Life is without meaning. How morose am I? Oh, woe is me. And then news will break and they'll be like, what? There's a Donkey Kong park? And you just get this like whiplash back and forth. And I think it's because this is just such an unknown quantity for Nintendo fandom. Right? This is not something that Nintendo fandom has been primed to acclimate to. And so dealing with news of this nature, it's just kind of outside of everybody's wheelhouse. I'm just throwing in the metaphors one after another here, Dustin, because I am good at metaphors. But
you're so good at it.
Yeah, so the only thing Nintendo fans know, I mean really know, and as far as like how to measure how popular something is, how well something is doing, is how many games get announced, how many games get released. And so for something that's still kind of ephemeral because the park is not open yet, and it just seems like this intangible possibility. And yet it's happening. I mean, it's really happening. We're like brushing up against it. We've been talking about it for years now, but the time is nigh, Dustin. It's nigh. And
oh my God, I had my clock set to nigh.
Yeah,
it's almost here.
Nigh was going to be a lot sooner than it actually is, because as we discussed back in December, Dustin, Donkey Kong Country in Osaka, Japan, at Universal Japan, was supposed to open kind of right now, either late April or sometime in May. That was the targeted date, spring 2024. And it being in the Northern Hemisphere, that would mean probably late April or May. But they announced that Donkey Kong Country has been delayed to late 2024.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yes, the actual...
The Donkey Kong brand is dead.
Yeah, well, the actual press release, translated to English, is the following. Donkey Kong Country, which was previously scheduled to open in spring 2024, has been changed to late 2024. We apologize for any inconvenience caused to those who have been waiting. We will announce the opening date and other details as soon as they are decided. And they did that, and then instantly all mentions of spring 2024 were scrubbed from the Universal Japan website. And they also took down and re-uploaded all of those beautiful trailers and teasers that they uploaded back in December. They re-uploaded those with a new vague time frame.
Right.
What cracked me up, Dustin, was that people were instantly, and you kind of made light of it just now, but they were instantly, and not everybody, but I mean, there were people out there, you couldn't really ignore it. They were crying doom and saying that this meant, or that they feared, at the very least. Not everybody was just inherently like going all in, but they were being trepidatious, and they were saying, do you think this means the park is going to be canceled?
Yeah, they're going to tear it all down. All the last few years have been all for nothing.
Yeah, I understand, like, the lure of cynicism. Or even just falling outright into the arms of sheer nihilism, because it's a coping mechanism, right? Like, it's how a lot of people deal with trying times, and people can be cynical or nihilistic about many things, be it like politics, the social situation, justice, war. Like, I understand how it feels and how crushing it all feels at times. And I don't begrudge anybody who feels that way. But if you're doing that with Donkey Kong, maybe try to reframe your thinking a little bit, because it's just not worth it. I understand if you're never optimistic about anything, then you can never be disappointed. Like, keep your expectations beneath the floor, and they will never let you down. But this is, again, I think Nintendo fans not realizing how anything outside of the video game industry, or maybe David Zaslav's Warner Brothers, operates in real life. Because you don't just cancel a theme park that's already effectively been constructed.
Right. That would be a massive waste of money.
It's not like they're just like, oh, you know what? Donkey Kong, who cares about Donkey Kong? Let's tear it down and build Hyrule. Like, that's not a thing, right? It's built. The section is basically built. Now, theme parks have to go through a rigorous amount of quality control before they open to the public. So I don't know if it's related to that. If it's Minecart Madness that's holding things up, because it is a relatively like bleeding edge technology, not to be confused with beloved DKU cameo game by way of the Gold Hoarder Bleeding Edge. But I'm talking about just like the state-of-the-art technology that Minecart Madness uses in coaster tech. I don't know if it's like we can't safely get the speeds up to where we need them to be. We saw some test footage of like somebody recording them taking out the mine carts from afar, and it was still going pretty slow. And maybe they're just like, we're going to have to tinker with this, and it's just not going to be ready for May. We're just going to have to say late 2024 to be safe. Or maybe they're just behind in building all the jungle foliage, like the trees, the plants, the the Shacks, maybe the Rambi animatronic is, goring people. We don't know. We don't know what's holding it up. But they're not canceling Donkey Kong Country. This is just... Oh, Dustin. It's
a little silly, isn't it?
I realize, like, I am sometimes...
There's plenty to be pessimistic about, I'm sure, like,
yes.
But I don't necessarily think this is something you have to worry about.
There's plenty to be pessimistic in this world, in this day and age. The Donkey Kong Country theme park is probably not one of them. And
right.
People are still going to be pessimistic about it because... it's like some fans are just not letting themselves get excited about it because the Kremlings aren't part of it, or because the Ellie animatronic is apparently not going to be a part of it, or it's just like you're not referencing XYZ. I can't get excited about this. Which, okay, I understand to an extent.
I get being a little disappointed.
Yeah, but this is still a Donkey Kong Country theme park.
Yeah, I never thought we would get this at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Donkey Kong Country theme park that has Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, Cranky Kong, Professor Chops, yes, Rambi, Squawks. Like, even 20 years ago, Dustin, if you told me there's going to be a Donkey Kong park in 20 years... I would have been like, oh, I bet Diddy Kong's not going to be in it. Because I used to be very cynical, and especially 20 years ago, at the height of Jungle Beats, at the height of mistranslated interviews giving us a false impression of Nintendo's beliefs towards some of Rare's characters. It was just like...
It was a different time.
Yeah, like, does Diddy Kong have a future in the series? And that was put to bed with Brawl, right? That when Diddy got into Brawl, everybody stopped worrying about Diddy, and then we just moved the goalpost over to the next character. And, and even now, like in a post-Ultimate world where we got K. Rool in Ultimate, where Banjo and Kazooie got in, and it referenced the DKU when they did, even that, like, people are still, like, doubting themselves, like, well, yeah, K. Rool got into Smash, but they're just never going to use K. Rool again. And it's the goldfish syndrome, right? Like, we can't remember the past victory because we're just letting the current reality define everything for us.
Right. And like, if you're upset about Ellie not being at the theme park, I get it, but I mean, look at almost every game in the series. You still like those. You like every game outside of DKC 3 and Donkey Kong Land 3, I assume.
The reason Tate voted for Donkey Konga in your version of the DKU draft was because Ellie was in it. Let's be honest.
That's the one sole reason.
Ellie got down to Diddy's Ditties in that game.
At like 3 frames a second.
3 frames of Ellie is still better than no frames of Ellie. That's my motto.
Yeah, it's better than this theme park.
Look, I've got my preferences for Donkey Kong and for the DKU, and I will always be most partial to the Rare era because that is when the nostalgia hits me the hardest. That's when I fell in love with the series, was the outset of it. And that, I look back to my childhood, and my childhood, wasn't all fun and games. It wasn't all the warm glow of youth. Like, I had anxiety then. I had depression, even though I didn't know it. I had to deal with a lot of bullshit. I still had a relatively happy childhood, don't get me wrong, but, like, I'm just saying, like, I look back to 1995 and I'm just like, I hated a lot about that year. Just because, I had a really good Donkey Kong game coming out then, and because I've kind of, like, focused on all the good stuff and the positive stuff, and I've kind of excised the bad when I look back on my life. You know what? There's good times and bad no matter when we are. So
yeah, exactly.
And I'm a fan of the new Donkey Kong Country games too, and I think it's really, really cool that we're getting a damn theme park based on Returns and Tropical Freeze. I never thought that would be in the cards in 2010, 2014. And as I always say, there's room to grow, right? Like,
yeah,
we get the park in there, they can add stuff later.
Exactly. Like, this doesn't mean there's, like, a no crumblings allowed policy or anything.
Yeah, like, this park was initially devised right when Tropical Freeze came out. So they were operating off the most recent games. The reason K. Rool isn't a part of it is because K. Rool didn't come back until 2018.
Yeah,
so
there wasn't enough time to capitalize on him yet. But
right.
I'd be surprised if we don't see him at some point.
Yeah, I think, like, and people are like, well, Nintendo hasn't used K. Rool since 2018. And I'm like, what could they have used him in?
Yeah, were they going to put him in, like, Mario Party Superstars or something?
Right, like, I hear, like, Mario Kart Tour, I hear, like, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and I'm just like, do you really want them to waste K. Rool in that? Like, I know some people would. Some people would be fine with that, but I don't know.
Right, don't get me wrong, I'd love to race as K. Rool as much as the next guy.
I would rather race as K. Rool in a Donkey Kong racing game, if I'm honest. Like,
True.
I don't want to be mixing the two properties all that much, and that brings us to the bright side of all of this. They have delayed Donkey Kong Country in Japan, but the full scope of Donkey Kong Country in Orlando has now been confirmed. So we knew this was coming. That this was kind of an open secret, but we still weren't getting much in the way of confirmation about it. But at the end of January, Universal made the plans for their upcoming Epic Universe expansion, which is like 5 bespoke parks in one, like different lands, different themed lands based around properties that have some tenuous connection to Universal Studios. Epic Universe will include Super Nintendo World, the Florida-based version of it. And when they announced this in January, if you squinted, you could see Donkey Kong Country in the park map. Like, there was the Golden Temple, Minecart Madness, like, the recognizable iconography, the diorama that we've been staring at for well over half a decade now. It was there. So we knew this was coming, and we also got concept art of general buildings outside of Donkey Kong Country itself. Because the brilliant thing about this version of Super Nintendo World, Dustin, is that Donkey Kong Country will be included in its very foundation when it opens. So they can incorporate the Kongs a little bit more in the general aesthetic of it. So
right.
We got, like, the entrance. We got the concept art of the entrance, which is just like this big trans-dimensional warp pipe. And on the warp pipe itself, you've got like the faces of various characters. And among, like, Mario, Yoshi, Peach, you also have Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong.
Love it. Love to see them.
Love to see them. I'm never sad to see them. And that's the truth. Like, I don't think I've ever seen those two characters and been like, not now, guys. Now's not the time. Get lost.
I got other stuff going on.
No, they always bring me that dopamine rush that we always seek. You know, I see them. It could be, you know, in Target. It could be in, I don't know where else I would see them. The
Mario movie.
Mario movie. I was thinking other, like, shopping experiences. Box Lunch.
Oh, I get you.
Box Lunch was the store that had all that Donkey Kong merchandise for a spell. I see them in Box Lunch, and I'm like,
I was just at Box Lunch not that long ago, like maybe a couple weeks ago, and they had that Donkey Kong dress shirt there.
Oh, classy.
And yeah, I just thought, I don't think this is something I would want to own and wear to places, but I love that it exists.
Don't worry, Dustin. I am working on the Baza Super Life battery dress shirt, and
yes, now we're talking. Now I'm ready for that job interview.
I mean, if the job interview is with me, you're hired.
Don't even need to do it. Just cut right to the papers.
I realize I have YouTube monetization back, but I'm still not making enough money to like actually hire you as paid salaried staff. But as soon as I can, I'll be, you know, spreading spreading the cheddar.
You know what, Hyle? It's the thought that counts.
That's what I do. Yeah, that's how prospective employers should turn down applicants and be like, we're not hiring you, but it's the thought that counts. And then
hey, you know what? We really thought about it.
So we also have the concept art, and I'm not sure how this fits into the general plans for Super Nintendo World. It seems to be like a shop in that it's not necessarily themed after the two lands. It's kind of just...
Yeah, like, this doesn't look like something you would see in the Mario or the Donkey Kong part. It reads as just like maybe a Nintendo themed store between parks.
Yeah, or like I don't know
between lands.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be like in Epic Universe itself, like the more like neutral entrance to Epic Universe, like Main Street USA or whatever. But
exactly.
Yeah, is this supposed to be like Rosalina's whatever
her observatory?
Observatory, yeah.
I don't think so. It doesn't really look like it. It's got like the stained glass. It actually reminds me of something out of Disney's Tangled, which would not make sense.
That's just the wrong brand entirely.
Yes,
like,
someone got the wrong email.
I was just because the inside of it has constellations on the roof, on the ceiling.
Oh yeah, I see them.
Yeah,
I don't think it's supposed to be Rosalina's observatory, but I could be the wrong one here.
Well, it also has kind of like a Peach's Castle thing because it's got stained glass windows, and
exactly
you've got stained glass depictions of various Nintendo characters, and in one of the stained glass windows, and again, this is concept art. This might not make it into the final build, but you've got a stained glass window of Donkey and Diddy, and finally, my church is being built. Finally.
It's about time.
You know, in Mad Monster Mansion, you got that stained glass window of Banjo and Kazooie.
Right, the one you can go inside of.
Yeah, and that's the only time I ever in my life shout out hallelujah and amen. Is when I see us, Banjo Kazooie, another duo that I'm always happy to see.
Yeah, love those guys.
Yeah, so stained glass window, but you also have a facade, a stone like relief of Donkey Kong in one of the pillars by the door. The entryway has these like columns, and on one side is Bowser, and on the other side is Donkey Kong.
Love it. Love these. I can just imagine myself going into this store and saying, "Hello, Donkey Kong. How are you? Thank you for welcoming me."
You imagine the amount of people who are going to be touching him. Like, they're going to be running their fingers all over his muscly arms and his flat abs. And, like, thankfully his butt is, like, in the building, so nobody will be touching his hindquarters, which is, of course, what everybody would be doing. That would be what they would be reaching for first. I don't care who you are, what your inclinations may be. You see Donkey Kong's ass, and your hand is going to be reaching towards it. You just can't help yourself. And then the finger oils are just going to corrode it to the point where there's nothing left.
Right. They need to keep that ass under lock and key. They need to keep it safe.
I grew up in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and there's lots of caverns there. It's a big tourism industry there. Mountains and caverns. So you can go into these spacious caverns and like go for a tour, and they specifically tell you not to touch the stalagmites that are grown up from the ground because human oils in your fingers can ruin it. And so, like, I know not to touch Donkey Kong's ass if I ever see it in real life.
Yeah, be respectful to his ass at all times.
And then within the store, because it is just a general Nintendo store, in the concept art, we see like they've added some kind of generic Nintendo merchandise. You've got the Donkey Kong plushies that have been available for like the better part of a decade now. But I imagine that will be more theme park specific when it actually opens, like exclusive to Super Nintendo World. So that was really exciting to see. But then on May 2nd, they got more specific with a reveal trailer for Super Nintendo World at Epic Universe and the launch of the website. And this is really where I think people started recognizing, because it's one thing if you're living in the West to hear that they're building a Donkey Kong Country theme park in Japan, because a lot of people won't be going to that.
Yeah.
But then to actually get that concrete confirmation that it is coming to the United States, which I realize is still far away if you live in Europe, if you live in Australia or New Zealand. Actually, Japan would be closer if you live in Australia, but you know what I mean? Like, even if you live in South America, it's still quite the flight to get to Orlando. But
right, even if you're in the United States, it's pretty far away unless you're on that side.
It'd be like a 4-hour flight for you, right?
That sounds about right. Maybe.
I think so. Yeah, 4 to 5 hours, but it's still like, I think, really set home for people when they announced this. And while this might have been known with the reveal in December of Donkey Kong Country at Universal Japan, the specific, I'm going to call it organizational branding of the park itself, it didn't really hit me until the day of the Epic Universe reveal, because, Dustin, the park is specifically divided up into 2 concrete sections, into 2 specific divides: Super Mario Land and Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, I love to see it.
Yeah, so, like, I don't even know if the Super Mario Land terminology was known in December. It might have been, because they're redefining it. Because when Super Nintendo World opened, it was just Super Nintendo World. Got some Mario stuff.
Right, the one thing was Mario.
Yeah. And now they're getting a little bit more specific with it. And now they're saying there are 2 halves to Super Nintendo World. One of those halves is Super Mario Land. The other half is Donkey Kong Country. And can we just, even as Donkey Kong fans, admire the fact that they're going with Super Mario Land as branding?
Oh, totally. I love it. I love Super Mario Land.
I've heard people ask, why Super Mario Land? Why not Super Mario World? And I'm like, well, it's Super Nintendo World. So you can't have something...
It would double up.
Yeah, you can't have something on par with it. It can't be a section of it if it's just another world. So,
well, then again, that didn't stop them from calling it a Universal Epic Universe.
Yeah, but that's not Nintendo's fault.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's just that's just stupid. But
that's just a dumb name.
Super Mario Land, of course, it kind of harkens back to the era of Mario that a lot of this deals in, like Super Mario 3D Land, and that. But I mean, Super Mario Land is, of course, the iconic Game Boy trilogy, and you still can't play the original Super Mario Land on NSO. So I don't know, but you can't play Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Switch either. And that's what most of the park is based off of. But yeah, Super Mario Land. And what's really exciting for this, for me, as a Donkey Kong fanatic, is just how they define the parks, right? Because Super Mario Land, the description on the website says, battle Team Bowser on Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, journey through colorful landscapes on Yoshi's Adventure, and more. So they're lumping in Mario Kart and the Yoshi brand under Super Mario Land. And I realize, like, Yoshi is thought of its own series depending on who you ask, what game you play, the era you're existing in. But Yoshi really hasn't been its own series or thought of as its own series away from Mario for quite some time now.
Yeah, because, like, Donkey Kong and Wario, they do a lot more to kind of separate themselves, but all the Yoshi games they still have, like, all the Mario enemies. Mm-hmm. It still feels very tied to Mario.
And in 1999, when Super Smash Bros. Came out, they defined Yoshi as its own series. And I think if Super Smash Bros. Came out just a couple years later, that wouldn't have been the case.
Right.
Because that was a very specific thing where it felt like Yoshi, and Yoshi's always had his own games. Even before Yoshi's Island, you would get these Yoshi side games like Yoshi's Cookie.
Yoshi Safari, Yoshi Cookie.
Yeah. So, like, there's always been this push to get Yoshi in his own series. But as you said, they've never really separated his iconography away from Mario.
Yeah, I mean, all his enemies are like Shy Guys and
Right.
even Baby Bowser and stuff. It just doesn't go to the same lengths as the other spin-off series.
And believe me, like, I don't want to be sitting here and lecturing any hardcore Yoshi fans that you can't think of it as his own series or that you can't advocate for
no.
it. That would be hypocritical of me because I wince whenever somebody just says Donkey Kong is part of Mario. But
Right.
we're just like looking at it, how they're defining it, how they're parsing it out. They're not just saying, oh, it's Mario Land, it's Yoshi's Island, it's Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. They're not just lumping all of it together.
And Mario Kart itself, it's its own brand, like its own merchandise brand away from Mario. Mario Kart has its own like license, so they're not even doing that with Mario Kart. Mario Kart is just under Super Mario Land, and Donkey Kong Country. The description for it on the website states, discover the action and fun as you help Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong protect the golden banana in Minecart Madness and more.
The golden banana, wow.
The prime golden
last time
banana.
I thought there was 201 of them.
Well, Dustin, I'm actually working on a video right now. It's called The Tiki Tak Tribe and the Dawn of DK Island. It's the newest DKU lore tour video that I'm working on. And I get into this. I get into how Donkey Kong Country Returns kind of retconned some stuff about the series. And the golden bananas we see in Donkey Kong 64 and other games,
I'm really looking forward to it. Huh?
They are effigies of the prime golden banana that we see at the end of Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Oh my goodness.
So the golden banana is the trans-dimensional banana that you can eat that takes you to Tiki Tong's Cloud Realm.
I see. I get you.
Yeah,
I can't wait. I love these DKU lore videos you do.
Yeah, this one I really had to do research on. Like, I had to research the history of like tiki culture and the origins of tiki from New Zealand and how it spread through Polynesia, and I really get into it, Dustin.
Oh, I'm boy am I excited. I love tiki stuff.
But yeah, it's like the website says, step inside the worlds of your favorite Nintendo games. And those two worlds, Super Mario Land and Donkey Kong Country. So this is really validating as a Donkey Kong fan who always has to contend with being thought of as an appendage, a leech, sucking on. Excuse me.
There you go.
Excuse me. Sucking on the more robust, blood-filled Super Mario series.
Man, that was a close one.
Yeah, ooh, close call. Checking in with the live stream really quick. Freezer clarifies and says, by new DKC games, you mean the ones that are over a decade old. New is relative, but yes.
Yeah, newest DKC games.
Yes. Porygon Q also points out you can't play Mario Land 3 on NSO either. Wario
Was
Land...
that the... Yeah, that's the one that was the first Wario Land, right?
Yeah, the third Super Mario Land and the first Wario Land. But it's generally thought of as the first Wario Land and not the third Super Mario Land.
They should get that on there.
Yeah, it's not confusing at all. Anyway, so... yeah, and then there's also, like... just lovely images that they provided in the video. in the video tour of Super Nintendo World, of Donkey Kong Country, of Super Mario Land, and just how they're divided out. And Dustin, we now know the name of the mysterious shack that existed next to Donkey Kong's treehouse that we could barely see in all of the like forward-facing images from the diorama on up. We could sometimes make out this weird shack next to Donkey Kong's treehouse. We never knew exactly what it was. And we finally got a good view of it, including the sign that exists on the roof, the grass, like, thatched roof of this hut. And
lay it on me, Hyle.
Yes,
lay it on me.
It seems to be a refreshment stand that you can get, because you're going to be hot, you're going to be sweaty, you're in the damn jungle, and you're going to be craving a fizzy drink, probably. So it seems to be a refreshment stand called the Bubbly Barrel.
I like that. That's fun. I want to drink all its delicious fluids.
Yeah, it's all right. Like, I do wish we could get another character in there, just because I love characters, and the Bubbly Barrel, it's fine for, like, a refreshment stand. It's fine for, like, theming it. You know, it's not just, like, the Capital One, Pepsi Cola, Minecart Madness approximate refreshment stand. You know, at least it's themed after Donkey Kong. But
right.
You know, it would have been nice if we could have gotten something related to a Brothers Bear, you know, and this is just me complaining that, you know, oh, why isn't this character in there? Why isn't that character in there? It's fine. It ultimately doesn't matter, but, you know, just, you know, you could have had somebody in there. Maybe an animal buddy.
We also don't know what'll be inside. I mean, we know, one of the Mario restaurants has like the Chef Toad in it. Maybe inside they'll have some characters in there.
I'm not sure if you can even go inside, or if it's just they like it's all like you wait in the line outside and there's just people working within. Like, I'm not sure if you can tour it. There are like seated
At least
areas.
From this picture, it kind of looks like someplace you can go in, but I don't know.
There's also tables outside. Like, they've got the like little like huts that almost look like witches' hats that you can like sit underneath and you know, protect yourself from the sun and just relax while you watch people ride Minecart Madness. So right. I don't know, but it's fine. Bubbly Barrel. I would be fine if that was a location in the new game. You know, put that in there for some brand synergy. But we also, incidentally, in the reveal of the Bubbly Barrel, got confirmation of something on Minecart Madness, because we actually can see that there is a screaming pillar as part of Minecart Madness, and it exists like right behind the Bubbly Barrel. So I really have to wonder if the people who are going to be sitting there have to constantly endure the screams of the Screaming Pillar.
They're going to be screamed at until they're done.
The Screaming Pillar is probably one of my favorite of the retro era. I was going to say baddies, but they're also like just environmental landmarks. Like, yeah. I really enjoyed whenever they made appearances in cameo games, like Mario Kart 8. They were in the one Mario Golf game for the 3DS. You know, just very,
they're very memorable designs.
They are, and I like that they, like, serve as kind of, like, it's very tropey. It's very evocative of, like, oh, you're wandering the jungle and there's this, like, enchanted totem or whatever that comes to life, and it's, you know, I like that kind of stuff. So
yeah, me too.
It's cool to see that it's going to be there. Like, we pretty much knew it was because it was part of the diorama. Then again, so is Ellie, and it had been bandied about a little bit, but this is our clear confirmation that it's going to be there. We also got you know, just not really new details about Minecart Madness, but a little bit more in the way of specs, and also just them talking about it on the video. Now, they included a picture of the entrance to Minecart Madness, which like includes like the different lines you get into if you have Universal's Express Pass. But being that I was looking for any and all Donkey Kong references on here, I saw the sign that said Express Lane, and I thought it said, or Express Entrance, and I thought it said Espresso Entrance.
Oh,
and I was really disappointed.
That's a missed opportunity.
Well, it's not too late. We can still convince them that just for this, they need to brand it as the Espresso Pass.
Yeah, come on.
They're never going to do it because that would just confuse things for, plebes out there who don't know what espresso is. It's an ostrich in Donkey Kong, and therefore it's on brand, but they care more about the Universal Orlando brand than they do the Donkey Kong brand, ultimately. So they're never going to go for it.
Maybe next theme park.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually when we finally get the Donkey Kong Country,
Country 2
GBA theme park. And we have Espresso Racing as part of it. So, the Minecart Madness specs, we finally have a height requirement. We finally know who's going to make the cut for Minecart Madness. So, you have to be 3 foot tall to ride it at all.
Oh, phew, just made it.
Children under 4 feet need a supervising companion.
Okay, I think that's fair.
It makes sense, and it's lore appropriate, because Dustin, Donkey was Diddy's supervising companion in Donkey Kong Country when they rode the original Minecart Madness.
That's true. It's very lore accurate.
And Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, where there was no supervising adult companion, well, there were no minecarts in that. They were riding a roller coaster, yes, but that was Kremland. They don't have requirements there. And Donkey Kong Country 3, they're riding toboggans. So this is completely accurate to the canon of Donkey Kong.
They really did their homework with this ride.
Bravo, Universal. Bravo. The website description for Minecart Madness says, take a wild ride through Donkey Kong Country. Oh, yeah. It doesn't say, oh, yeah. I added that little flourish, that little bit of English on it.
I loved it myself.
Yeah, so it says, Dustin, would you like to read this? I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing the reading materials.
Oh, no, I know how much you love reading, but I'll take a stab at it.
All right, stab it, like OJ.
Okay, maybe a little different than that. It's up to you to help Donkey Kong protect the Golden Banana on Minecart Madness. Enter the majestic Golden Temple. Board your minecart and take off in this thrilling family coaster. Speeding through the mine, you'll appear to jump across gaps in the track and perform other eye-popping feats from the Donkey Kong Country video games.
Yeah, you're going to turn into a spider.
Oh, no. They left that part out.
Yeah, that's the twist that they're saving, is you get mutated into Squitter. So I should also point out that this ride is classified on their website as a thrill ride. So I know like family coaster implies that it might be something a little bit more gentle, and I'm sure it will be more gentle than the more like nausea-inducing like roller coasters. Like this won't take you upside down or anything, but I think it's still going to be exciting. It's not going to just be like something that's just for little babies. It can't be for little babies. They're not old enough or tall enough to ride it.
Yeah, sorry, those of you under 3 feet tall babies.
So, this is why Kiddy Kong isn't here. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's not allowed in this park.
They would point to the Kiddy Kong animatronic and they would say, hypocrites.
You let him in here while I have to stand out here in the cold?
So, there's also, and I implore everybody to check out the website. It's at universalorlando.com. There's a really nifty animated navigational map that you can like see how the park is laid out. Like apparently you go through the warp pipe and like the other side is Peach's Castle, and then you're in Super Mario Land, and you can access Donkey Kong Country off to the side, and but you can just keep clicking on it until you get to Donkey Kong Country, and then it's really cool because this map is animated, so it's all connected, so the camera like shifts and pans over when you go to a new section. But for Donkey Kong Country, they really have to go all out because it's an entirely different section of the park, and it's just fun. It really puts it into perspective for you if you still can't visualize how this all works out. So check it out. But we also got a closer look at the power-up bands. Now, we talked a little bit about this, and I put my foot in the mouth when I said they were free. They're not free. They're going to cost you. They're going to cost... And in fact, this park is going to bankrupt me several times over. I'm going to have to take out a loan to buy all the merchandise that I'm going to want to buy here. But the power-up bands that will be included at launch, including the ones that are being introduced for the first time, of Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. So we saw these back in December, but now we get the full look at the bands themselves, because we only got like a little sliver of them before. So the Donkey and Diddy power-up bands are a little bit different than the Mario characters. The Mario characters use their what's their, I guess, emblem that's used in things like Mario Kart Tour, and then it tries to use like this swatchy, not like approximation of their clothing on the band itself. Like Mario's and Luigi, they have their overalls. Peach and Daisy have their princess dresses. Toad and Yoshi are a little bit different in that they just put polka dots on their bands. I don't know why. They kind of gave up.
I guess their clothes just aren't iconic enough.
Toad wears a blue diaper and Yoshi has shoes. Like, it doesn't...
Yeah, good enough.
For Donkey and Diddy, they've got something completely different. They have, like, Donkey Kong's emblem is the DK, and Diddy's emblem is the somewhat still controversial DD. I realized Tropical Freeze introduced the DD branding, but, they use the stars in Mario Kart, so there's a little bit of a divide what Diddy Kong's emblem should be.
I guess I get that, but boy, am I not a fan of the DD.
Yeah, DD is, it's a bust measurement. It's not Donkey Kong abbreviation, but they didn't use the stars on this because they were apparently saving them for the band itself.
I like that they're on there at all.
Yeah, so Donkey Kong's band uses the bananas. It has banana bunches on a green band, and Diddy's has the stars from his shirt on a red band, and then they also have silhouettes of the characters on them as well, similar to like the sunset levels in Returns, or like the silhouette levels in general. But yeah, it's cool because like they actually make appearances on the bands. The other bands don't have any appearance of the actual character; it's just their clothes. But Donkey and Diddy actually show up for their power-up bands, so pretty cool.
Love it. I love seeing them.
Yeah, so, and this was a big deal. Like, I know it was a big deal, probably a bigger deal when they announced the park in Japan in December, but, like I said, this kind of brought it home for a lot of people living in the Americas, or, who are just, like, closer in the West than they would be to Universal Japan. Doug Bowser even tweeted about it. On the social media site formerly known as Twitter, Doug Bowser said, "As a fan of Donkey Kong since his debut in the arcade game," and I'm sure Doug Bowser realizes that's actually Cranky Kong, not the current Donkey Kong, but you have a character limit on the social media site formerly known as Twitter, so Doug Bowser couldn't get into it. Anyway,
right, he can't explain it to everybody.
Yeah, there's no need to explain to everyone.
Everyone knows.
Everyone already knows. It's common wisdom at this point. But Doug Bowser says, "As a fan of Donkey Kong since its debut in the arcade game, I am so excited for this addition to Universal Orlando! ! #Super Nintendo World."
Thank you, Doug Bowser.
Yeah, Doug Bowser, he's been in charge of Nintendo of America, like, during this bleak hiatus for Donkey Kong. So he hasn't really been able to talk about Donkey Kong all that much. So it's nice to see Doug Bowser talk about Donkey Kong. And I replied to him, and I said, today you are Doug K. Rool.
See, I hope maybe coming soon he'll start branding himself as such.
He better change his name to that in, like, the Nintendo Direct.
Right, legally.
I'm just gonna say, like, they could do a cute little skit in a Nintendo Direct where he's like, oh, I better call myself Doug K. Rool, because here comes Donkey Kong.
I'm just imagining him just kind of shuffling his arms around. He's like, oh, I better call myself Doug K. Rool. And then everyone laughs and claps.
He puts on a little crown and, like, they digitally, like, make his eye grow.
They put him in, like, a full body suit.
Yeah. He's like, he gets a big belly and he, like, spanks it.
He's like, I did this for you.
I would also recommend, after you check out the website, I would recommend going to the YouTube. And, just go to dkvine.com, because I've done news stories on all of this. But you can pull up the video on YouTube. And they talk about the entirety of Super Nintendo World at Epic Universe. And the last part of the video is reserved for Donkey Kong Country. Like, they talk about the Mario Kart ride, they talk about the Yoshi ride, and then they say, like, the music gets a little bit more, like, jungly. You hear, like, DK Island Swing kick in, and it's just like, oh yeah, because you can hear it coming, that's the classic bit of Donkey Kong, as you hear the music and it gets the heart pumping. But I wrote down some key quotes from the video that struck me, that made me happy, Dustin. I'm all about making people happy, so I'm going to read them to you.
Quotes that sparked joy.
Yeah, I'll read the first one. You can read the second one, and then I'll read the third one. Okay. Donkey Kong is one of the original icons. Just in general. Just one of the original icons in general.
One of the first ones ever.
Yeah, it's like Hercules, Zeus, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is one of the original icons, and we certainly couldn't do Super Nintendo World without including him. So, we of course agree. Like, we at DK Vine absolutely 101% get behind that statement. But how wild is it to hear that when literally everyone outside of Mario and Donkey Kong are being excluded from Super Nintendo World? Like, Donkey Kong, I realize, like, we are, and I talked about this earlier, like, we descend into the bowels of cynicism, and like, oh, poor Donkey Kong. Oh, why does Nintendo hate Donkey Kong? But we are used to taking the coach or economy seats in the big Nintendo jetliner behind Mario, behind Zelda, Pokemon, Kirby, and in recent years, Splatoon, Fire Emblem, even Metroid has gotten a lot more shine than we've gotten in recent years, since should have been Metroid Gate back in 2013.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I tell people not to get envious, not to, like, let's not you're not doing Donkey Kong any favors by starting territorial wars against, and most people like those series, so it's, but it just, like, it's not a competition, but you do feel like they'll get around to Donkey Kong. Yeah, it's, like, not completely at F-Zero levels. Apologies to Freezer in the live stream, but they'll get around to Donkey Kong when they can get around to Donkey Kong, but Donkey Kong's never
sooner
a priority.
Or later.
Yeah, it's never the priority that those games are. And so for Donkey Kong to get his roses, to get his flowers, it's very surreal for me when it happens, especially on such a large stage such as this. Like, it's surreal for me when it happens, like, Tropical Freeze was announced, or K. Rool gets into Super Smash Brothers. I'm like, what is happening?
I was just thinking about K. Rool and Smash. Like, it's awesome, but it also feels like, well, this is a feeling I'm not super used to Donkey Kong actually getting a little love and spotlight.
Yeah, and so that feels surreal. But for it to be outside of the world of video games, like something that is going to have a lot more mainstream recognition and pull in people, like it gives me a bit of imposter syndrome. And I say that like as a Donkey Kong fan, like as a Donkey Kong journalist, it makes me feel like, oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, we don't deserve this. Like, I'm sorry. It should have been Hyrule. It should have been Dreamland. I'm sorry. We suck.
It is, like, even as one of the world's biggest Donkey Kong fans, even I can be like, well, that's strange they did it over, like, Pokemon Land or something.
Yeah, and, like, I have the perspective that I do because, like, I've been hearing since 2018, like, Nintendo has big plans for Donkey Kong. You're right, like, Nintendo wants to turn Donkey Kong into a world-beating IP on par with their other big franchises. And, but I've been hearing that since, like, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out. And it's one thing to, like, intellectually know about it, but it's another thing to experience it for real.
And to have it out there in the world.
To process the emotions of it, because that doesn't feel real. It's like it's the difference between going into your fantasy world and then actually like meeting a wizard in real life.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh, who's at my door? Oh, it's just Gandalf the Grey. What the fuck?
I didn't think this was a thing that could happen in reality.
Yeah, I guess he would be Gandalf the Yellow if he was the Donkey Kong wizard, but...
True.
Yeah, so... It just, like... They said that, and I was like, are you sure you want to say that? Because there's, like, a litany of Nintendo fans out here who would disagree with you. But I'm happy you said it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, why don't you go ahead and read the second quote I jotted down for you?
I would love to. Donkey Kong Country is a completely different landscape from Super Mario Land.
Yeah, and that's worth pointing out again, that they're like actually saying that this isn't just... Because I think was it Captain Radley who called in a while back about the park, and like they were saying that this is not supposed to be like an indication of any of Nintendo's plans for Donkey Kong. The reason Donkey Kong is included is because he's being lumped in with Mario. And
I think so. It's been a while.
Yeah. And I disagreed, and I said, like, that's not what's happening here. But here they're saying, like, yeah, like, this is tonally different from what we have going over here in Super Mario Land. Like, they talk about how you, like, will have, like, the jungle rhythm going on. Like, it's a land based around, to use a term, jungle beats and, like, music. And it's more like you are in this Congo jungle setting, whereas Super Mario Land is you are in the Mushroom Kingdom. And
right.
It is just being, like, having that divide and having Donkey Kong be put on this pedestal right next to Mario, not underneath Mario, like not in like the tree of Mario on a separate branch, but like as its own equal thing. It's bewildering to me.
Shoulder to shoulder with Mario.
Yeah. And I'm pleased by it. I am pleased.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I can talk about, like, oh, I feel like we're not worthy. Oh, why are they doing this? But then I'm going to be like, no, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no.
Please, may I have some more? Like, don't stop now. Like, let's keep this going. Like, I'm not saying, like, let's just keep expanding Donkey Kong Country at Super Nintendo World, but, like, let's do some other stuff. Like, get a game out there or two. I don't know. All right, this is the last quote, and this is in reference to Minecart Madness, because they say Minecart Madness has the most innovative technology inside of it to make us feel like we're jumping the track. And then that was followed up with another person saying, there are 0 screens. It is all real show. It is all real thrill. And
that's very, I love that they specify that, because when I went to Universal Studios a few years back, and to be fair, this was Universal Hollywood, not Orlando, I was a little bummed that like almost all of the rides I went on were all screen rides. And I think that's like a fine way to do a ride, but I don't want that to be all of the rides.
Yeah, when I went to Universal when I was like extremely little kid. So this would have been the early to mid 90s. And like I went there because like it was kind of a pilgrimage point if you were a child of the 90s in the Americas, because Nickelodeon Studios was there. And this is pre-Dan Schneider Nickelodeon. This is pre-Skeevy Nickelodeon. This is like Mark Summers, Double Dare, early Nicktoons Nickelodeon, you know?
Right. I really wished I could have gone.
Yeah. And I got to go when Universal still had the Nickelodeon Studios there. And that was all I cared about, because I was a Nickelodeon kid growing up. I wasn't a Disney kid. And so it was just really, I saw Mark Summers there, like the host of Double Dare, like shit.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Like a fucking rock star of my early childhood. But, I remember like they had like the Back to the Future ride. It was like one of the only screen rides they had. And I'd never been on a screen ride before, and how novel and exciting that was, because it was still a relatively new thing. And, it was really cool, but the ride that really impressed me there was the E.T. ride, because it was all done with props. It was all done with real animatronics and like tricking the eye with depth. And it was just really something you can marvel at the technical wizardry of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I never got the chance to go on the ET ride, but I hear wonderful things.
So it's really cool to hear that this is all going to be done with like real props, real drops, real animatronics. They're actually bringing a minecart level in Donkey Kong to real life.
Totally.
And they sound really like they're building it up as this huge technical breakthrough, which we heard it was going to be. But again, it's one thing to hear about it for years, and it's another thing to get that very tactile confirmation from like the like, what are they called? Like the theme park engineers at Universal. Whatever they're called, whatever the term for it, because like Disney has their own terms for it. But
the Imagineers or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, and I was like, no, that's Disney. Again, that's Disney. Different thing. So we also got some trademark filings. On the day they announced all of this, Nintendo quietly filed for some trademarks. They're finally getting around to trademarking some of the stuff that's appeared in Donkey Kong Country games that they never got around to because there was really no need to trademark it. But now that it's going to be part of this park, they got to get on it. So both Minecart Madness and Funky's Flying By got filings. And this included like descriptions of what they're going to be used for. And we got confirmation that Funky's Flying By will indeed be the souvenir stand in Donkey Kong Country. And included, because you know, I as part of my weekly rounds, I check out trademark filing websites to see like what they're up to, what the companies I follow are up to, because sometimes you can glean some interesting information there that isn't officially announced yet. But included in there was the isolated logo for Funky's Flying By, which we've seen in some of these like videos that have been uploaded both by Universal Japan and Orlando. But this is a clear, like full on, it was a JPEG, but still like isolated image of the Funky's Flying By logo. And it's just, it's got the Funky's name on like a wooden board, and then hanging off the board is the surfboard that contains the Flying By logo in orange.
Love it.
The surfboard is blue. Blue and orange is a very appealing color scheme that like people who make movie posters or even restaurants will do to like draw in customers. So Funky is smart. He's a smart businessman. He knows what to do as far as branding and logo design go. So
he says, "Oh, colors. I know how those work."
What's interesting, though, again, about Funky's Flying By is Funky is not a confirmed character who will be making any appearances either through animatronics or presumed, like, costume appearances. We haven't gotten any updates on if they're going to be Donkey Kong, like, character meet and greets. We think that's what Donkey Kong's Treehouse is going to be for, but we don't know yet. But, yeah, Funky has been nowhere to be seen in anything except the name Funky's Flying By, and his airplane is going to be there. So it'll be interesting to see if they incorporate Funky to a larger degree later on, but I'm just happy that he's referenced.
Oh, totally. Like, even if they don't end up having the character there, just saying, hey, he's still part of this cool experience.
Right. And again, it seems to be a real special time if you're a fan of any of these characters, because, you know, Funky has kind of had a bit of a renaissance as of late. He was on Saturday Night Live last year. He's getting referenced here. Like, Chunky and Swanky were in the Mario movie. Like, that would have been unthinkable before it happened. So
definitely.
Again, if you're disappointed by the characters that are selected for the launch of the park, just keep that into perspective that, hey, K-Rool did come back in a relatively recent game. Chunky and Swanky have been referenced recently. So there is hope. There is room to hope in a way that there maybe hasn't been for quite some time for Donkey Kong fans. Speaking of the characters, though, we got another merchandise leak, and this is like a straight up leak, because the park was supposed to open in Japan, like right now. And so they obviously would have had a lot of merchandise ready to go. And I don't know if they're going to be sitting on it until it opens later in the year, or if they're going to start selling it like in the other shops. But we got these rubber character keychains from Universal Japan. And a user on the social media site formerly known as Twitter, at Koopa630Kit, K-I-T, shared these. And these are 7 rubber keychains for Donkey Kong Country, utilizing most of the characters that will be included when it opens. And all of these are utterly amazing.
They're so good, I want all of them.
They are all done in the very iconic art style of the entire park. Because the entire park utilizes this art style. We've seen like Donkey and Diddy in this style on a lot of official merchandise as of late. But like the park is the first time we're seeing other members of the Donkey Kong cast get in on it. And you've got keychains for Diddy and Donkey together. And the keychain itself says Diddy and DK, and they're like high-fiving. And just to see Diddy go first in the name listing,
that's crazy.
It's so sweet as a Diddy Kong diehard, because
it's wonderful.
It's like, yeah, Diddy can go first. He's a video game hero too. He earned that right. Donkey Kong doesn't mind. So, and I like each keychain has like a character logo. And I don't know if these are going to be like sticking around as like the official character logos of these characters. I would be fine if they did because I love them. I love them so much.
I'd be totally down if these stuck around. These all look like so good.
Yeah, Diddy and DK, it's a bit weird. This is the only one I'm not sure about because the text is, I don't even know what these like yellow stripes are supposed to be, but there's a yellow stripe going down the D in Diddy and the Y in Diddy and then the K in DK. Just, I don't know, it's a little bit too busy for me, but then
I get that.
Diddy Kong also has its own keychain. It's Diddy Kong's head. It says Diddy Kong. And the logo is like very fruity red, yellow, and green. Like Fruit Stripe, the gum that was just discontinued.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It looks like Fruit Stripe gum. And Diddy has a banana to make the tail and the Y.
Love it. Very fun.
Yeah, it's just weird to see Diddy's name written in something that's not just the Donkey Kong font.
Yeah. It's so different.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it.
Dixie Kong has got a keychain, and her logo, it's pink and blue. And the first eye in Dixie uses her earring, her little blue earring, which is a cool touch.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. And I just love to see Dixie just at all, Cranky Kong.
Yeah, she doesn't get nearly as much merch as the others, and she looks great.
This is one thing I'm really excited about with the park, Dustin, is more Dixie merch. I'm hoping we finally get a official Dixie plush. That, there hasn't been an official Dixie plush released with the contemporary Donkey and Diddy plushes. There's been like a bootleg that's floating around.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look that great.
Yeah. Hopefully it's the start of a trend.
Cranky Kong. I love this Cranky Kong because Cranky Kong is yelling on it.
He's so pissed.
He is actually cranky on this. And I made reference to this on social media. I said, they seem to actually be leaning into Cranky Kong being cranky again. And a lot of people were like, when was he ever not cranky? You don't know anything, you shithead. And,
jeez.
I'm like, well, I'm talking about, the buyout era. Cranky really did stop being cranky. He was more like the wise old man.
They kind of course corrected with Returns in Tropical Freeze a little bit. Not obviously didn't go as full out as the Rare era, but I thought they did a pretty good job with his dialogue in Returns and his animations in Tropical Freeze.
He was still a little bit muted in Returns, where he was he wasn't saying this game should have been deleted or anything,
right?
But he was in Tropical Freeze, at least his idle animations. There's the great one where he just wants to read the newspaper and he doesn't want to play the video game.
Yeah, exactly. Love that one.
But just to see him full on ranting angrily is something we haven't really seen in quite some time.
Yeah, been a while. And boy, is he's so angry here, and I love it.
And his character logo is made out of wood planks. And it's kind of evocative of, I don't know if you're familiar with the 2003 build of Diddy Kong Pilot, Dustin, but
I'm familiar.
There's a mode you can unlock, or you would have been able to unlock had it been released. I realize the ROM is floating around, but there's a mode you can unlock called Cranky Kong Pilot, where the only selectable character is Cranky Kong. And I mean, all the character select screen is just 4 different Cranky Kongs, and no matter which one you select, they're all the same. But the logo of Cranky Kong Pilot sort of looks like this Cranky Kong logo with the wooden planks, and I love it.
Right.
It's
Same.
so good. Rambi has a keychain. And it's Rambi charging, as he's wont to do. But this is another piece of confirmation that they have updated the Rambi design and brought him back closer to the way he looked in the Rare era.
Yeah, I love this. I especially love just the simplicity of his name logo.
Yeah, it's like a gray and like bluish gray and pinkish gray, alternating colors. It's like rock. It looks like prehistoric rock.
Yeah, with cracks going through the letters.
Yeah, it looks like the kind of font I would have seen in the early 90s when dinosaurs were big and everywhere and like prehistoric things were in vogue. And it reminds me a little bit of like Super Mario World somehow.
With like Dinosaur Land?
Yeah, just like a cartoony, like prehistoric aesthetic. But yeah, just evocative of Rambi, like busting through rocks.
Yeah.
And I really like this logo for Rambi. Squawks gets another, I was going to say gets another piece of merchandise, but how much Squawks merchandise do we actually have?
He was in the Lego set at the very least.
True. So was Rambi, yeah.
Yeah.
Squawks, his logo is also very fruit stripey. It's like just the colors of Squawks. It's got like the orange, it's got the yellow, it's got the green. And Squawks is actually carrying his name. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Carrying his name like he would carry a flashlight or Diddy or Dixie or Kitty or Tiny. Yeah.
And the S looks like his wing.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Fun.
I love all of these. But the one I didn't expect to love the most. This is surprising. That the one that really bowled me over and made me say, I've got to own that. Professor Chops. Professor Chops. Okay, so let me just clear the air a little bit once more about Professor Chops. I don't hate Professor Chops per se. Professor Chops was just introduced to us in a very ill-fitting manner, where he was just called Tutorial Pig. And so DK Vine, we all got together and we said, that's unacceptable. Retro, try harder. We said, we're going to call him Checkpoint because Tutorial Pig is not a name. And every DKU character deserves a name. Retro was like, all right, our bad. Well, we can't call him Checkpoint because you came up with that. And then we would have to like pay you or something. And I would have been like, no, don't pay us.
You can have that one.
Legally, they have to say like, we have to come up with something else. He's going to be Professor Chops. And it's like, well, that's not as good as Checkpoint, but you know what? That's still a name. And
it is a name for him.
We appreciate the effort all the same. But the thing about Professor Chops, and I liked him better after Tropical Freeze. I did. But the problem with Professor Chops, Dustin, is the one render of him.
Yep, it just immediately springs to mind.
It's got the DreamWorks smirk.
He's like,
The smug little, like, ooh. Like, he's DreamWorks or even, like, an Illumination character. Like, he looked like he could be on, like, the movie Sing, like, on the DVD cover or something.
Wow. I never thought I would have heard you bring up the movie Sing.
Yeah, because I know about it.
What song would he sing, Hyle?
I don't know Sing, Dustin, but
they just sing whatever songs. Give Professor Chops a song to sing here.
"Party in the USA" by Miley Cyrus.
Awesome, love it.
All right, so the only reason I know Sing is because it's an Illumination movie, and the gorilla from it was in the background when they announced the Super Mario Brothers movie. and I made a joke on social media that blew up where I was like, I hate the Donkey Kong redesign. And so people who don't know, like, I joke. People who don't know, like, that you can talk about video games with humor. They were like, actually, that's not Donkey Kong.
That's the gorilla from the famous movie Sing. Maybe you've heard of it.
I knew it wasn't Donkey Kong, okay, but thank you. Thank you for educating me on the ways of Sing. So anyway, yeah, he's got this smug little attitude like, I'm the shit. And if he had any other render, but you think about Professor Chops and you think about that render and it just makes you want to punch something. Not necessarily him, but just something.
But it could be him.
Yeah, so this is Professor Chops in the new art style, and he's got the 2 checkered flags in each hoof, and he's waving them. And what pushed this over the edge for me was the localization of his name. And I don't know if this was his actual localized name in Tropical Freeze, but it's what they're rolling with now, in the here and now. And it's not Professor Chops. It's Chops Sensei.
Love it.
It's such a good name. And quite honestly, if they just said over here in the West, if Professor Chops just said, I'm now a full-on sensei, so call me Chops Sensei, thank you, I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, that would be good character development.
You know, because that's what he is. He's kind of like the Bottles of Donkey. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, we know Retro, weirdly enough, played Banjo-Kazooie in, like, their research for Donkey Kong Country Returns. Like, they played the original Donkey Kong Country and Land games, and they played Banjo-Kazooie as well. It's just like, what are these freaks like? We're going to play those, and we're going to try to distill it. And I think some subconscious level, they looked at Bottles, and they were like, could we get Bottles in here? We gotta have to change him, of course, but could we get Bottles in here? Because Bottles is basically Mole Sensei, right? Like, he
teaches your moves.
He educates Banjo and Kazooie on various different, like, offensive and defensive moves. Professor Chops kind of does the same. So yeah, go all in with it and have him be like this swiney karate master.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. I feel like that would help to give him a little more character even. It gives him something you can narrow in on.
Yeah, and so if they bring these out in the Orlando park, I of course have to buy all of them. But in all honesty, I might have to hit up eBay for a Chop Sensei keychain because I really want that one. I really want that one.
Yeah.
And like, the truth is, right, just seeing Professor Chops as official merchandise is so surreal. Like, it's as surreal as seeing Swanky or Chunky referenced in 2023.
It feels like a character you would never expect to get any sort of merch, and here it is. Because
we have, like, lived so long in the hinterlands as fans, where, like, you expect Donkey and Diddy to get merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And, you like, even Dixie is a struggle, right?
Right.
So to get this bounty of stuff where we're getting 2 animal buddies, we're getting Professor Chops, of all people, it's just so bewildering as a Donkey Kong fan, because I'm like, whoa.
Where'd all this come from?
Yeah, like, you know this is for Donkey Kong, right? Like, why are you doing this? And
this
then
isn't Zelda.
That gets into the imposter syndrome again. So, yeah, I love it, though. I really do.
Oh, totally.
In the live stream,
I'm so glad they all look so nice.
In the live stream, we've got noted Professor Chops aficionado Porygon Q. And Porygon Q, in all caps, says, Chop Sensei. Yes. And Porygon Q says, literally the most exciting thing in human history. Let's fucking go.
I think that's hard to argue against, yeah.
Porygon Q's not done.
It probably is the most exciting thing.
Porygon Q also says, I'm so fucking excited for Chops Sensei merchandise. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I agree. It's awesome. Here's the thing. I know I have my preferences as a Donkey Kong fan, and I always be partial to a specific era in time, the golden, hazy days of my own childhood.
Right.
But I really do like the retro era. I like all Donkey Kong, right? And so I'm really happy about this, and I'm really excited about it, and it's really cool to see. And like I said, like, build up Professor Chops. Like, here's the thing, like, Professor Chops, we were so standoffish towards him because we didn't know anything about them. Like, who the hell is this?
just a nothing character at first.
Yeah, but keep using him. Build him up. With the new Donkey Kong game, I don't want them to start from scratch again. Bring in Professor Chops. Bring in some characters from the Payon era. Bring in a Jungle Beat character or two. Bring back some Rare era characters. Go all
totally.
in. Go all in on
The more
Donkey Kong.
characters, the better. I'm happy with seeing anyone come back.
Introduce new characters while you're at it. Like, give us this healthy balance. Celebrate the totality of Donkey Kong. And
agreed.
Please everyone, right? Also just checking in with the live stream. March Rose has joined us. Hello, March Rose. Freezer also says, in reference to them not going with Checkpoint as the name and going with Professor Chops, remember when Playtonic used Dingbat after a community member suggested it? Yeah, but Playtonic, I want to say they're more down to earth with the rest of us. They're not as afraid of litigation because they know they know we're chums. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm sure whoever it was who suggested it would just be happy it's used and not want to sue Playtonic for the name.
Yeah, it's like it's the DK Vine forum. Who cares?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for your comments. And,
thank you,
what?
Everyone.
Porygon Q, when it first goes up on eBay, I will let you have the first Chop Sensei, so long as I can get the second one.
Hyle, that's so big of you.
I also have to start saving my money because this place will bankrupt me. Like I said,
true.
I have to take out a loan, and the bank's never going to approve this. Why do you need a loan? Well, all of the Donkey Kong merchandise coming to Super Nintendo World.
Say no more. Approved.
That's not the way late-stage capitalism works, my friends. So, we have some calls. Came in on the hotline. Yeah. So you can call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. That is 8463. Call in when we announce an episode topic and give us your thoughts.
I love hearing your precious voices.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's scary. We realize it's scary to put yourself out there, but we're just gentle folk. We're just small wheel boys, and we're not going to hurt you.
Yeah, we're no better than you.
Yeah, we're just down
by
there.
By that much?
We're just down there with you and Playtonic. Like, we're just all friends.
Yeah, we're all down it splashing around in the mud.
We're not going to send lawyers after you.
Unless you cross us.
Yeah, don't you dare fucking cross us. So, let's go and play the first call, Dustin.
Okay.
Hyle and Dustin, this is Traveler of the Stars. Professor Chops Nation, rise up for our Chops Sensei. Hyle and Dustin, are you ready? Is Jeff ready? I really want to know, is Jeff, you think, ready to become an apprentice for Chops Sensei? I want to know what you guys think about that. Let's get into it. The delay on the Donkey Kong theme park expansion, it was a little surprising to me that this happened, but paired with the personally the rumors that I side with on the Switch 2 being delayed. I think it was originally going to come out this year, but now it may come out in March or whatever, early next in 2025, whatever. I do just appreciate, I know this is not like a new observation, but I really do appreciate that Nintendo is one of the few game developers, publishers, whatever, companies, whatever, that doesn't rush things out. Obviously, there are some games that launch with bare bones content, but those can happen for a variety of circumstances. Regardless, I'm fine with, things taking longer, for a bigger payoff. I know maybe people could read into it like, maybe they are delaying the park to coincide with the Donkey Kong release more. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe, Metroid Prime Remastered came out, it's gonna be over a year before Prime 4, and the other two games aren't on Switch yet. I don't know if it matters. And Returns, an HD Returns isn't on Switch, so I don't know if that matters. But regardless, it's cool. I'm more than happy with that. It's just cool to see all this merchandise. I know I made a post on Twitter, Hyle, but I really love, I don't know what you guys think about this, but I really love the main 2D Mario artist. Their name escapes me, but I love their take on the Kongs. I just think it's so good. I believe it's Shigehisa Nakaway, hope I said that right. I just really love how they look. I love how Donkey Kong, like, there's still some elements of, like, you know, the Miyamoto design, but, like, it's obviously still rooted in the, you know, new, modern designs, so to speak. So, I don't know. I think that's cool. I would love to see their take on King K. Rool in the Kremlin. It looks super cool. Anyway, I don't really have any thoughts. I already asked before what merchandise you'd like to see. I guess I'll ask again in case you have anything. But, I don't know. Take it easy, guys. See you. Also, you guys both look great today.
Well, thank you for the call, Traveler of the Stars. And,
you.
so I guess we should talk briefly about this, Dustin.
Okay, I'm down to talk briefly about this.
Yeah, so it came forward this week, and they said that there will be a June Direct, that the successor to the Switch, the next Nintendo console, will be revealed this year, within the financial year, that is, which the financial year for Nintendo ends in March. So who knows what financial year might entail,
right,
vis-a-vis our calendar year, but they will not be announcing the next console for the June Direct. So anything announced for the June Direct will still be within the realm of the OG Nintendo Switch, and for, like, I guess its last holiday season as the primary Nintendo console.
The second half of the year for this Direct.
I think a lot of people, we just accepted the notion, the idea that the Donkey Kong game, whatever shape it's taken since development was scuttled at Vicarious Visions. You know, last we heard, it was being brought in internally, but we haven't heard anything since then, since the curtain came down as far as information goes. So I still assume it's being developed by Nintendo EPD, but maybe somebody else took it up. I don't know. But the assumption has been since, you know, I think late last year, early this year, that, well, the Donkey Kong game will be coming out on the next console. And we sort of all just made our peace with that it, you know, it might launch early on as a big marquee game, and it would tie in with the park and everything. But now there is the question of, well, if they're going to have one more holiday season with the Switch, will the Donkey Kong game be there? Or another possibility I've heard bandied about by myself, by others at DK Vine, and outside of our realm, is kind of stupid that you're doing a park mostly based on Donkey Kong Country Returns, and you can't play Donkey Kong Country Returns on a Switch. Kind of dumb. Where's Donkey Kong Country Returns? You're sitting on the, like, HD remaster or version of it for the Chinese NVIDIA system. I don't know if that's how you actually say it. I've never spoken it out loud, but you know, you could just put it on the Switch. So there's a possibility we might be getting Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Switch. I haven't heard anything about that. That isn't me saying, like, I got a juicy scoop for ya. This is just me speculating and looking at how smart it would be to get that on store shelves. The only thing I'm not looking forward to is if they do that, then everybody's going to say there is no new Donkey Kong game, you know.
like when Mario versus Donkey Kong was announced? Yeah,
when Mario versus Donkey Kong was announced, and they're like, oh, this is what they've had in development for 6 to 7 years.
Obviously, can't you see?
Yeah. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I would still welcome Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I think it's a big hole right now in the Switch library, because why not? Why not put it on there and give people access to what most of this park is based on, and then hopefully there will be a new Donkey Kong game on store shelves with a new console, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's totally possible we could see either of those this year, or next year. I don't know.
Or nothing.
I guess I'm just in a position. Yeah, I'm in a position where it's like, well, anything could really happen. We could see a new Donkey Kong game this year. We could see a Returns port. We could see nothing. There's no way to know right now. I'm hoping we see some Donkey Kong in some form.
What's really nice, though, is, one of my big laments is that Nintendo never announces their directs ahead of time, so you can't prepare for them.
But this time you can.
Not only have they... Well, we don't know exactly when it's coming in June.
Right.
Like, the Xbox One, and I know everybody doesn't want to talk about Xbox right now, because they keep closing studios that they bought and laying people off that they, acquired. But, that's going to be on June 9th, and... traditionally Nintendo would be 2 days after that, like Xbox on Sunday, Nintendo on Tuesday, when E3 was alive and well, and you would have the structure based around E3. Now it could be any time in June, but we will be kicking off Stinky Ape Summer that weekend, the weekend of June 9th. So it will be part of we're not going to have not E3 coverage this year. It's not going to be labeled as not E3, but we will go harder with Stinky Ape Summer than we've ever gone before. So
oh, thank God. Just what I wanted to double down on.
Yeah, Stinky Ape Summer is going to be the branding just in full now, because you know what? E3's gone and we can't... Yeah. We can't try to conjure its ghost anymore. It's dead, and it's moved on to its next stage of existence. It's been reincarnated as a little baby who can't ride Minecart Madness.
Yeah, E3 is gone. Don't worry, we have the best possible replacement for you.
Stinky Apes, and I can't wait until it gets big enough where we can start having like Stinky Ape Summer conventions.
Stinky Ape Summer conferences to show off all the latest games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but they have to be related to the DKU.
Yeah, nothing else gets in. If your game is not related to DKU, get the hell out of here.
Right, and this Sega's coming in with like Super Monkey Ball, and we're like, monkeys aren't apes. Get the fuck out.
Hey, unless one of those monkeys is Diddy Kong, get out of my sight.
Yeah. That will be the day, Dustin. We will be royalty.
I'm counting down the days. To touch on something else that Traveler of the Stars said, yes, I love the 2D artwork for that they do for the Mario games. And the artwork we're seeing for these Donkey Kong keychains, we already went into it, but boy, are they gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm glad Traveler of the Stars made the attempt to say the artist name, because I was going to bring up their name, and then I realized I don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm terrible with names in general. It's my Achilles heel. I can barely say Achilles, and so it's just like I don't know how to pronounce your name, and I'm gonna feel bad trying and failing. So
right. You did do pretty well with Achilles just there, though.
Oh well, thank you. So if I don't know how to say somebody's name, I get really sheepish and I skirt around it. But thank you, Traveler, for taking the bullet for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and play our next call.
Gotcha.
Hey, Dustin and Hyle. It is yours, mine, and ours, DKRDS here. One thing that I love about the Super Nintendo world, at least the one in California that I've had access to, the bathrooms, this is weird. It's like my third or fourth maybe favorite thing about it. The bathrooms have, like, aquatic Mario music in there, and you just know that the Donkey Kong bathrooms are probably going to have the aquatic ambience, that is in the Donkey Kong Country games. And my question to you is, what do you think the moment when you realize, when you're in the park, like, oh, this isn't something that I thought I was going to really enjoy, but lo and behold, here it is. And I understand that may be an impossible question, but I just remember walking in the bathroom at the Mario World and the music hitting me and being like, oh my god, I am a adult and this is what I love, and it's even hitting me in the bathrooms. Professor Chop's supremacy. Thank you for taking this call.
Thank you for the call. I don't know if there are going to be bathrooms situated in Donkey Kong Country if you have to go out to Super Mario Land for the bathrooms. We haven't seen bathrooms.
Yeah, I mean, the Kongs probably just piss and shit wherever they want. They're animals. So I hope they don't expect that of their park goers.
Well, like, if it expanded to the broader DKU, you could obviously get Lago in there.
Yeah, true.
You know, it's not like we haven't seen toilets in the DKU. And I hope you're right. I hope they do put bathrooms somewhere in Donkey Kong Country, because I, of course, will document every square inch of those. I am the freak who at E3 would stake out the urinals that Nintendo would use, trying to get some hot scoops for ya. And that just makes me look like a sex criminal. Like, it makes me look like Dan Schneider, and I apologize to all Nintendo employees who might have felt violated by that. I wasn't weird about it, right? Like, I just, I was like, this is where Miyamoto will do his business if he has to do his business here. And this is the place to be for a responsible journalist. So,
well, don't worry, Hyle. Now that E3 is dead, you don't have to give up. You can just say, oh, I can't do it anymore because there's no E3. You don't need to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this in general.
Right. Just water under the bridge or some other liquid. So I would really like it if, like, the Donkey Kong Country bathrooms were somehow themed. Like, obviously you're not gonna have like barrel toilets. You're not gonna you're not gonna go like all in on them. Like, it's not gonna look like Swanky's Bonus Bonanza with like the 1, 2, 3.
The outhouses from Jungle Japes and Smash Brothers.
Yeah, so yeah, the Kongs do use bathrooms, Dustin. Well,
that's true.
The hole just goes out into the river, so Cranky just shits in the river.
That sucks so bad.
Well, yeah, but it goes out to sea, washes up on the Isle of Hags. But
yeah, the circle of life.
Yeah, so I would like aquatic ambience to play. Like, these are just going to be basic bathrooms, but put in aquatic ambience. It would be really nice if, like, Squidicus's tentacles could come up out of the toilet and tickle you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just give you a little tickle, and then you're like, whoa, that caught me by surprise. What a fun park. I'm
hoping the innovation won't just be confined to Minecart Madness. I'm hoping we'll have some truly cutting-edge theme park tech everywhere in Donkey Kong Country, and that includes the bathrooms.
Yeah, oh, totally. They'll break new ground.
Yeah, so here's hoping they do. And you know what? Like, they probably can't afford a bathroom attendant, like the person who gives you like a little mint or like hands you your towels or something. That's not something that theme parks have. Those are like really like upscale restaurants and hotels have those. But that would be a chance to get a new costume character in there. Like, who would best serve as the bathroom attendant of Donkey Kong Country?
I'm gonna say Lanky, because imagine all the towels he can fit on those arms.
Yeah, and grape juice also really makes you have to go.
Yeah, true. He gets it. He's like, oh, been there, brother.
Well, thank you for the call, and I'll see you in the bathrooms. All right, let's take our final call.
Hey, DK Vine, this is Kyle calling in once again. I'm glad you guys are excited for the theme park, but I've never been a theme park guy since I'm terrified of roller coasters. Like, it's just a sensory issue for me. Even the small ones I have trouble with. So maybe this is affecting my judgment, but I personally can't see why people are acting like this is a better time for DK fans than the time between the buyout and returns were. I mean, we were still getting games during that time. Sure, they were spin-offs, but they were games. Think about how few games we've gotten between Tropical Freeze and now. DLC for Rabbids, two Mario vs. DK games, one of them being a remake, and a Switch port of Tropical Freeze that only added an easy mode. On top of that, I've seen so many publishers, like Sony, Activision, and even Sega, to some degree, use merchandise and especially Capcom, use merchandise as a substitute for actual games. Like, Mega Man hasn't gotten a game in over 6 years now, but a lot of people seem to think he's still active just because we're getting remastered collections and some merch. But honestly, I feel like it doesn't matter. A franchise health depends on it actually getting games. On top of that, for how much you guys have made it clear you want the broader DK universe characters to be acknowledged, and I don't think that can happen without the weird experimental spin-offs we got in the 2000s, because, like it or not, at the end of the day, there's no point to include, like, say, Wrinkly Kong and Candy Kong to save your game when games are just expected to auto-save now. So, in my view, the series is in a less health than it was in the 2000s. Granted, I might not have the best perspective given I was born in 99, so I'm more so the outsider looking in. I didn't really have an attachment to the Rareware, whereas I don't think I was even fully caught on the Cheers or Sentient or whatever until after Microsoft bought them. But I'm curious what you guys think. Can merch and outside stuff like movies and theme parks act as substitution for games? Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thanks for the call, Kyle. Now, so this is a point of contention, I would say, in the fandom right now. And you see this too with Banjo, especially with Banjo-Kazooie fans. There is kind of a low-key revolt towards any Banjo-Kazooie merchandise at this, because despite how, like, Rare goes about, like, approving merchandise, they're not doing it with any insidious, like, twinkle in their eye saying, like, well, this will shut them up.
Those stupid fans.
Like, it's just, they're doing it because they know people love these games and other, like, companies want to make merchandise for them. And the merchandise does sell, like, and, but it's never like this, we'll do this instead of a game. Like, Rare's not sitting around, like, cackling about this, like, but to the point of, like, Mega Man and everything, and if Donkey Kong is a comparable case, I will agree that the last few years of Donkey Kong have been the hardest to be a Donkey Kong fan, just from a game perspective. For like the entire 30-year duration, I have been a hardcore Donkey Kong fan.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, the buyout era was, at the very least, like, pound for pound, game-wise, far more satisfying and robust than this. Here is why we at DK Vine are saying, no, this is actually technically a better era than that was. And it's because Donkey Kong is getting the foundational support that didn't exist in the buyout era. And the big thing is, I would agree with you if we were just getting shirts sold at Target and box lunch, and, like, the weird DK barrel pen pot, and like, just, like, tchotchkes and pointless baubles that, you know, are just ultimately destined for the landfill once we die.
Little doodads.
I would agree with you if that was just the extent of it. a Donkey Kong Country theme park is so much more.
Yeah, like I get that you're not a big theme park person, and that's understandable. Not everyone is, but like the implications of Donkey Kong getting a theme park, I think are just as important as the theme park itself.
We talked a little bit about the theme park ecosystem. What I might have glossed over was the theme park community, which is so widespread and it mainstream in a way that I don't think video game fandom is still mainstream. Obviously, video game fandom is more mainstream than it was 30 years ago, but theme park fandom crosses more societal barriers. Maybe we're like, it brings in a lot more people. And what Super Nintendo World serves as is a gateway drug, if you will. Like, it's what the dealer gets you hooked on, and then you keep coming back for a bigger hit. So Super Nintendo World, and we see this with Disney parks all the time, like Disney parks fostering this lifelong fandom of Disney properties.
Right.
And that's why you have Disney adults. That's why that's a thing. It's not just because they grew up liking the animated Disney movies. It's they really love Disneyland and Disney World. And like, it's just the whole trappings of it enchant you and make you feel like a kid again, give you that dopamine hit, and you want to keep coming back for more. What Super Nintendo World will do is not just bring in pre-existing Nintendo fans. It's going to bring in people checking out Universal Studios. And they're going to go into this replica, this life-size replica of the Congo jungle. And they're going to experience the sights and sounds of Donkey Kong. Many of them, most of them, for the very first time. And they're going to ride Minecart Madness and say, that was really, really cool. And then they're going to go home, and maybe they have a Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2 or whatever. Maybe they're thinking about getting one. And they're like, I really like Donkey Kong Country at Super Nintendo World, and I've got to get a Donkey Kong game. And what the buyout era did not have was the zeitgeist. The buyout era was a lot of Donkey Kong games without any clear direction. And we got a lot of great stuff. And we got a lot of people into the DKU during that time. But it was so outside of the mainstream at that point. Like, the heights of Donkey Kong Country mania from the 90s were not there. It wasn't popular. And in fact, it was mostly shit-talked by gaming media and press. And it was just like these isolated things. Like, here's Donkey Konga, and that might do well enough. And then you get Donkey Konga 2, and people don't care. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat might get critical praise, but it's associated with the bongos, and it just kind of... It's just this weird outlier on the GameCube. Peon's games like really appeal to the pre-existing hardcore fans, but again,
barely anyone else.
Yeah, like nobody will
as good as they
them.
were.
Yeah, as good as they were. Like the biggest Donkey Kong games of that era, financially speaking, were Rare's handheld ports or remakes of the Donkey Kong Country series, which is why it inspired Nintendo to just go all in on Donkey Kong Country. And how we got Donkey Kong Country Returns, and honestly, how we got this park today. Like, it all had this butterfly effect, or this domino effect of making Donkey Kong Country the very identity of Donkey Kong when it had an identity crisis. But the buyout era, like, you look at it, and yeah, you got a lot of great games in it, but they were just, they came and they went, and it barely made any ripples in the pond.
Just no staying power.
What this park will do is give us a permanent foundation to bring in fans.
Yeah.
The gateway drug. I mean, that's what it is. And so even if you yourself, like, you're not a roller coaster person, and I completely get that. Like, for most of my childhood, I was terrified of roller coasters. I would like to go to theme parks just to kind of take in the atmosphere of them and maybe ride some of the more like chill stuff, maybe the water rides, but I would stay away from the roller coasters. And it took me like quite a bit of, honestly, what it was is when I started hiking and started like climbing up into the mountains, it got me over my fear of heights. And so then it was just a fear of dropping, and I just kind of built myself up to that incrementally until I could handle like the more intense roller coasters. And not everybody can do that. Like that was something I could do in my teenage years, right? But you know, it's not something you could just do. Like if it's a sensory thing, then it's far harder to overcome. And why should you, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, but so I can completely get like if you have no like personal stake in the park and you're just not enthused by it. But I will not discount how many people this will make lifelong fans of Donkey Kong just by virtue of it existing as a physical location. And
yeah,
I know this is a point I've brought up so much over the last 6 to 8 years. Well, I guess not quite 8 years. I'm inflating it artificially in my head now, but they would not be doing this park if they had no plans for Donkey Kong.
Right. Yeah. Why would they have any incentive to do a theme park for Donkey Kong if it was a dead brand?
It was 2018 that saw Donkey Kong become its own separate brand within Nintendo. Like it was moved into its own merchandising category. And there's still some crossover with Super Mario there, yes, but even these pen pots that I just made fun of, the company that put them out, they have the Super Mario license, and the bottom of the pen pot is stamped with the Super Mario logo. But the packaging itself has the Donkey Kong logo on it, and no mention of Super Mario. So it's like, you still have to brand it as Donkey Kong, even if you're like, you think, oh, I'm going to release this as a Super Mario thing. No, if it's a standalone Donkey Kong product, you got to release it as a Donkey Kong thing. Right. And that was right when I got the news, like, Vicarious Visions project was dead. They were moving Donkey Kong in internally, and they were like, we've got to get serious about Donkey Kong. We still have not seen the fruits of that labor, but the theme park is part of that attack strategy. I mean, that was in place even before this happened, even before the Vicarious Visions game fell through. Like, they were still doing a theme park. So it will be this great incentivizing thing for Nintendo. Like, even if we were to discount everything we know, everything we've been told, the history of Donkey Kong since Tropical Freeze, just having this theme park existing is going to inspire Nintendo to, I was going to say shit or get off the pot, but they can't get off the pot now because the pot has been constructed. It's a whole theme park land. You can't just start over again. Like, all these people who are like, you think the park's going to be canceled? No.
Yeah, it's going to be turned into Zelda land. That's how theme parks work. You
can't do that. Like, maybe in the future, like 20 years down the line, and they're like, well, this Super Nintendo World just isn't profitable anymore. People do not care. Let's take Donkey Kong out back and shoot him. But like that is a possibility in the far future. It's not a possibility the year the park's opening. So
I really like that you leave that possibility open. They could take Donkey Kong out and shoot him, but don't worry, it's not right now.
Theme parks do change up their rides and attractions all the time. It's just
right.
It's not something they're going to do, and it's going to be something that's going to be harder to do for Super Nintendo World, because it's not just changing out a ride, or, you know, it's like an entire half of the park is Donkey Kong themed.
Yeah, and that ride is so, like, ingrained into the Donkey Kong theme. It would be, I think it would be pretty hard to, like, if you're rebranding that park, to rebrand that whole ride into something else.
Again, like, maybe in the far-off future that's a possibility, but it's not a concern anytime soon. So having this park exist will be a boon for Donkey Kong in general. And to have that mainstream recognition, people becoming Donkey Kong fans, people walking around with Chop Sensei keychains dangling off their fob because they rode Minecart Madness and damn it, they love that pig. And it's just
I gotta support my love for that pig.
Oh man, I loved going to the bathrooms at Donkey Kong Country and getting tickled by that tentacle.
ain't no better theme park experience than that. I'm gonna buy all the games.
Shit or get off the pot. I'm gonna stay on the pot to get the full Squidicus experience.
This has been a File 2 production.
I want to drink all its delicious fluids.